The world is changing. Africa is the new geopolitical battleground. The world's youngest continent is now the focus. Africa's shift is reshaping the global order. Africa's economic potential is staggering. By 2050, its population will double to 2.5 billion. This growth presents opportunities and challenges. World powers are vying for influence. The future of our world is being shaped in Africa. The African continent is on the move. A new narrative of progress and global ambition is being written. Africa is home to some of the world's fastest-growing economies. Its young, vibrant population embraces new ideas and technologies. The world is recognizing Africa as a key player. Africa's rise is driven by its determined people. Tech-savvy and globally connected, they drive growth, starting businesses and creating jobs, leading creative industries and challenging stereotypes. Despite challenges, hope and optimism prevail. Africa rises with the aspirations of its youth. The world is waking up to a new Africa. Africa is now seen as a continent of immense potential. Countries and organizations are deepening their engagement with Africa. Africa's resources and market are in demand. Africa addresses global challenges like climate change. Africa's youth and entrepreneurial spirit are vital. Certain nations within Africa are emerging as key players on the world stage. Embracing innovation, they assert themselves as architects of their own destiny. A new generation of leaders is determined to claim their place in the global order. Africa faces challenges, but there's growing confidence and self-belief. Solutions must come from within. With African nations as the primary authors, the rise of these African giants can uplift the entire continent. Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation, is an economic and cultural powerhouse. Lagos, the commercial hub, leads in technological innovation. Despite challenges, Nigeria's potential remains unshakable. South Africa stands as a beacon of hope and a testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome profound challenges. Emerging from apartheid, South Africa has established itself as a multiracial democracy and a continental leader. South Africa boasts the continent's most developed economy and is a major player in global trade and investment. The nation has played a pivotal role in promoting peace and security on the continent. However, the legacy of apartheid continues to cast a long shadow, with high levels of inequality and poverty persisting. The government is implementing social programs and investing in education and healthcare to create a more inclusive society. China is reshaping Africa with strategic investments and growing influence. This partnership raises eyebrows in the West. Some see benefits, others warn of neo-colonialism. China's engagement is driven by economic and geopolitical goals. The reality is complex, with opportunities and risks. Central to China's African strategy is the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. Launched in 2013, the BRI aims to connect China to the world through infrastructure projects. Africa is a key component, with Chinese investment funding transformative projects. These projects facilitate trade, attract investment, and create jobs. For China, the BRI secures access to new markets and resources. The BRI has been met with both enthusiasm and skepticism in Africa. China's influence in Africa raises debt concerns. African nations accept Chinese loans with little transparency. Critics accuse China of debt-trap diplomacy. Risks of default are real. African governments must scrutinize loan agreements. China's role in Africa remains debated. For decades, the West, particularly the United States and Europe, held sway in Africa. The relationship, often rooted in a colonial past, shaped the continent's political, economic, and social landscapes. But as the 21st century unfolds, a new reality is taking hold. The West's influence in Africa is waning. Economically, China has surpassed the United States as Africa's largest trading partner. The European Union faces increasing competition from emerging economies like India and Brazil. This economic reorientation has shifted the balance of power, giving African nations more leverage in their dealings with the West. The relationship between Africa and the West is burdened by a long and troubled history. The legacy of colonialism, with its brutal exploitation and artificial borders, casts a long shadow over the present. While many Western nations have acknowledged their past, the wounds of history run deep, fueling resentment and mistrust. This mistrust is compounded by the perception that Western engagement is driven by self-interest. The focus on securing resources has led to accusations of exploitation rather than support for development. Continued support for authoritarian regimes reinforces this perception. In the name of stability, the West has often ignored human rights abuses, undermining its moral authority. This has led to accusations of hypocrisy, alienating many Africans who yearn for democracy and respect for human rights. The challenge is to build a new relationship based on mutual respect, equality, and shared prosperity. This requires a shift from a paternalistic approach to a more collaborative partnership. Section 3. The Security Dilemma. The West's response to Africa's challenges is often framed through a security lens. The focus on counterterrorism has overshadowed Africa's complex realities. This has led to more military bases, training programs, and arms sales. While containing extremists, these efforts have unintended consequences. Militarization fuels human rights abuses and undermines democracy. It fails to address poverty, inequality, and poor governance. These issues create fertile ground for extremism. Addressing them requires long-term commitment to development and human rights. Over-reliance on military solutions risks a self-fulfilling prophecy. Framing Africa through a security lens reinforces instability. This creates a cycle where militarization leads to more instability. Section 4. A New Narrative. The West stands at a crossroads in its relationship with Africa. The old paradigm of aid and paternalism is no longer tenable. A new approach is needed, recognizing Africa's agency and potential. This narrative must be rooted in partnership, not charity. Prioritize investment, creating jobs, and fostering entrepreneurship. Support good governance and human rights. The West has a choice to make. Embrace a new era of engagement based on mutual respect and shared prosperity. The future of both continents depends on today's choices. Section 1. The African Union, a beacon of hope. In a world grappling with division, the African Union, or AU, stands as a beacon of hope, a testament to the enduring power of unity and cooperation. Born out of the ashes of colonialism, the AU embodies the aspirations of a continent determined to forge its own destiny. Established in 2002, the AU represents a paradigm shift in how African nations view themselves and their place in the world. The AU recognizes that the destinies of African nations are intertwined and that by working together, they can achieve more. The AU is a dynamic organization with a broad mandate encompassing peace, security, economic development, and human rights. Its founding document sets out a bold vision for an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa. At the heart of the AU's mission is the belief that Africa's problems require African solutions. One of the most ambitious initiatives by the African Union is the African Continental Free Trade Area, or AfCFTA. Launched in 2018, AfCFTA aims to create a single market for goods and services, with free movement of people and capital. The agreement aims to boost intra-African trade, create jobs, attract investment, and stimulate growth. Beyond economic benefits, AfCFTA fosters political unity and cooperation. It encourages peaceful dispute resolution and common goals. If successful, AfCFTA could transform Africa's economic landscape and make it a global player. Peacekeeping, an African solution for African problems. For decades, Africa has faced conflict and instability. The African Union believes African problems need African solutions. The AU's peacekeeping missions are crucial in stabilizing conflict zones. They protect civilians and create space for political dialogue. The AU is committed to developing its own capacity for peacekeeping. This includes the African Standby Force, ready to respond to crises. The African Union's commitment to peacekeeping marks a significant step towards self-reliance and regional integration. Africa is taking ownership of its security, sending a clear message to the world. It is determined to resolve its own problems and build a prosperous future, The journey ahead is fraught with challenges, yet there is hope for a brighter future where Africa's potential is realized. Beneath Africa's vast landscapes lies a treasure trove of natural resources. From the diamonds of Botswana to the oil fields of Nigeria, from the gold mines of South Africa to the cobalt deposits of Congo, Africa holds a significant portion of the world's raw materials. Essential for smartphones, electric vehicles, and renewable energy, these resources are both a blessing and a curse. They attract investment and fuel growth, but also lead to exploitation and conflict. The scramble for resources often results in instability, with external actors vying for control. This legacy of colonialism casts a long shadow. Many countries face corruption and mismanagement, leading to the so-called resource curse. Recent decades have seen a new wave of extraction, driven by demand from emerging economies. While it brings investment and development, it also raises concerns about environmental degradation and exploitation. The Nile, the world's longest river, snakes its way through 11 countries, sustaining millions who depend on its waters for agriculture, industry, and daily life. For millennia, the Nile has been a source of life and prosperity, its annual floods nourishing the land and supporting ancient civilizations. But in an era of increasing water scarcity and climate change, the Nile has become a source of tension, contested by nations vying for control of this precious resource. A colonial-era agreement granted Egypt and Sudan the lion's share of the Nile's waters, leaving upstream countries like Ethiopia with limited access. Ethiopia is constructing the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, a massive hydroelectric dam that will be Africa's largest. However, the GERD has heightened tensions with Egypt, which fears that the dam will reduce its water supply. The Nile River dispute highlights the complex challenges in managing Africa's shared water resources. Resolving these disputes will require cooperation, dialogue, and a willingness to share. The African continent stands at a crossroads, poised between the promise of a brighter future and the weight of its historical burdens. The narrative of a continent defined by poverty, conflict, and dependency is giving way to a new reality, one where Africa is asserting itself as a global player, a continent brimming with potential and determined to chart its own course. The old certainties of a world dominated by a handful of superpowers are being challenged by the rise of new powers, by the resurgence of nationalism, and by the growing interconnectedness of a globalized world. In this fluid and uncertain environment, Africa's role is becoming increasingly important. The decisions made in the coming years, both by African nations themselves and by the international community, will have a profound impact on the continent's trajectory. Will Africa be able to harness its vast potential, to overcome its historical challenges, or will it continue to be shaped by external forces, its resources exploited, its people marginalized, its potential unrealized? The answer to this question lies not in the hands of fate, but in the hands of those who have the power to shape the future. The leaders, policymakers, entrepreneurs, activists, and citizens of Africa and the world. The challenges are immense, but so too are the opportunities. The African continent stands at a crossroads, poised between the promise of a brighter future and the weight of its historical burdens. The narrative of a continent defined by poverty, conflict, and dependency is giving way to a new reality, one where Africa is asserting itself as a global player, a continent brimming with potential and determined to chart its own course. The old certainties of a world dominated by a handful of superpowers are being challenged by the rise of new powers, by the resurgence of nationalism, and by the growing interconnectedness of a globalized world. In this fluid and uncertain environment, Africa's role is becoming increasingly important. The decisions made in the coming years, both by African nations themselves and by the international community, will have a profound impact on the continent's trajectory. Will Africa be able to harness its vast potential, to overcome its historical challenges, or will it continue to be shaped by external forces, its resources exploited, its people marginalized, its potential unrealized? The answer to this question lies not in the hands of fate, but in the hands of those who have the power to shape the future. The leaders, policymakers, entrepreneurs, activists, and citizens of Africa and the world. The challenges are immense, but so too are the opportunities. The world is watching Africa, recognizing its importance and potential to shape global events. Choices made today will have far-reaching consequences for the entire world. Africa's rise requires vision, leadership, and collective effort. Good governance, democracy, and the rule of law are essential. The future of Africa is being written every day. The time for action is now. The future of Africa and our world depends on it.